Hour. We'll get right to it with Pat Kirwan. He of CBS's NFL Today show, co-host of Moving the Chains weekday afternoons on NFL Radio. Pat joins us once again, courtesy of Pinchers from Tampa to Key West and many points in between with 8 locations in Southwest Florida. Pinchers, because you can't fake fresh. Pat, top of the morning to you. Did you enjoy Ryan Fitzpatrick turning back the clock? He had more touchdowns than incompletions last night.
Yes, he was, as occasionally he is Fitzmagic, and last night was one of them. He was on a roll. He hit 12 in a row to start the game. You were there, so you understand how that when a guy's like that, he can almost beat anybody. And then next week he might throw a couple picks to start off. But yeah, I was happy for him. It's amazing because my son played against him, and Sean's got 3 kids and working on Wall Street, and I keep looking at Fitz going, Sean was playing defensive back against that guy when it was Harvard at Penn. I'm like shocked he's still playing. When he ran that in for the touchdown, I immediately called my son and said, "You can't do that. That guy can still run in for a touchdown."
It was, it is why, obviously, the old line, it's why they play the games. Jacksonville had played 2 teams that we thought were much better than Jacksonville. They beat one. They played one right to the bitter end. The Dolphins, if their rush defense wasn't so bad, it was because their pass defense wasn't so bad. I mean, they were 26 and below in both categories. Last night, defensively, pass defense was terrific. Run defense was terrific. I mean, it didn't even look like the same team. And I guess it's a long-winded way of saying, Pat, when do we really – you've always used the 4-game mark. Is it just kind of one of those things that we still going into week 3, we have no idea what teams are all about right now, do we?
We're honing in on it, though. As who was I talking to yesterday? I had a bunch of players on. I think it was Winfield. I had a lot of guys, but I think it was Winfield who said to me, "Hey, now we have 2 full games to watch." And coaches clearly, they like 4 games for the computer breakdown, but they'll take the 2 since they had nothing else. And so I think guys are starting to get a sense of what you're trying to do. And a guy like Minshew, where's his escape lanes? Where's he trying to get out? And how to close those windows and not let them out the gate. So, yeah, I think they're starting to get better. And look, the offenses, which to my shock was way ahead of the defenses, which I never thought would be the case. But I think you'll start to see defenses starting to tighten things down a little bit. And that should start to happen maybe this week.
Pat, there's some pretty interesting games on the docket this week.
Yeah.
Rams at Bills, a couple of 2-0 teams. The Rams clearly playing better than most of us thought. And Buffalo answering the bell with expectations high. Your thoughts on Rams and Bills?
Yeah, I thought Jerry Hughes was one of the guys I talked to yesterday. And, he's kind of like the senior statesman, spokesman for the team. And, he thinks they're in a good place mentally. He doesn't think they're inflated with, we're playing really well or any of that business. So what are the issues? The issues are, can you contain Josh Allen? Do you know how to do that? He could neutralize even Aaron Donald with his escape skills. And so I'm interested to see that. Goff is so underrated, even by me. I didn't give them enough credit in the summertime when we were looking at these teams. That guy's 24-10. So there's the underrated guy. Josh is kind of the talk of the town. I think it's the Buffalo secondary that makes things hard on everybody. Every quarterback that I've ever interviewed after they play Buffalo just talks, about how much McDermott has that defense in the back end doing a lot of creative things. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. I think the loser isn't in a bad place. The winner obviously is strong, but the loser, to me, it's kind of like the Patriots last week losing. And that didn't really hurt them. None of us, tore down our perception of them. So I think the loser of this game, I don't think it'll be a blowout either way, will still be considered a very good football team. That's how I see it.
Pat, there's a bunch of 0-2 teams that are desperate. I mean, yeah, there's teams like the Lions and the Panthers and the Jets that we just know stink. And I know the Lions have a little higher expectations for themselves, but we both know they're a bad football team. But the Eagles, who've gotten off to a bad start and are all banged up, they get Cincinnati. Minnesota, 0-2. They're at home against Tennessee. Houston, be it 2 great opponents, 0-2 going to Pittsburgh. And I'll leave Philly out because they damn well better win at home against Cincinnati. But between Minnesota and Houston, who do you like the best this week with that sense of desperation?
I like think Houston's the best of the three teams, but I don't like them winning the game in Pittsburgh. I think, the schedule makers weren't very nice to them, so they're going to weather this 3-game storm. What I said to all the listeners from Houston who are out of their minds upset is all your teams in your division have to play these guys too. You just happen to play them 1, 2, 3. So at the end of the day, Houston's the best of the three. But to answer your question, I would give Minnesota the best chance, although I don't give them much of a chance. I think, Cousins can always turn around and start playing well. But I don't like any of them, to tell you the truth. And I could see Philly losing too. You start thinking about that Burrow and he gets on that rhythm passing stuff, they could beat them.
Well, that would be something. If Cincy goes into Philly and beats the Eagles, look out. Some marquee games this week, Pat. Dallas goes into Seattle. Maybe this wouldn't have been marquee if Atlanta could have hopped on an onside kick. But these two teams have a little bit of history. They met in the playoffs a couple years ago. They also played in the regular season a few times recently. Cowboys and Seattle. Seattle's 2-0, giving up 500 yards of offense a game.
Well, I see both of these quarterbacks against the teams they're playing. I could see both quarterbacks way over 300 yards passing. Another guy I talked to was Chris Carson yesterday, and basically was very comfortable talking about how they flipped the offensive philosophy. They're throwing now early. He's becoming a really interesting weapon in the passing game. Dak, when pressed, will still throw for 300 against this secondary. I could see Russell at about 325 and Prescott maybe at 350. So get ready for close to 700 yards of passing in this game. And I think it's a pretty high scoring game. Both offenses pretty potent. Both defenses, in my opinion, really just holding on for dear life. So big, exciting game. That way, I like Seattle, but I could see this game maybe 38-35, something like that.
Packers, they're looking really good right now. And I don't know if the Saints are. Not just because of the loss. Even in the game against Tampa, David was quick to point out on Monday, Kamara almost scored 3 touchdowns, but he had 31 yards going into the fourth quarter. Breeze had 98, David, going into the fourth quarter in that game passing?
Yeah, Kamara had scored 2 touchdowns and nearly a third at 30 total yards of offense in the game. Breeze had 94 yards passing through 3 quarters, and they nearly put up 40. But their offense
and the pick 6.
And their offense was only responsible for 14 of it.
And then it doesn't look all that good against Vegas. So now you get Green Bay, and I don't know if Adams is going to play or not, but you got the Thomas Adams thing. That's a wash. If there's a guy that's playing with bigger chip on his shoulder than Aaron Rodgers right now, I'd love to know who it is. When you look at this game, Pat, what do you see?
I see the Packers. I love that they wasted the draft pick. I don't want to bring it up again, but every time I see Rodgers play like this and an offense that's averaging over 500 yards and over 42 points a game, I like the Packers as they are right now. Aaron Jones and the guys that they have. I think here's what I'll say. I think Rodgers can win without Devontae Adams. I'm not so sure Breeze and the boys can win without Michael Thomas. I see, there's a little bit of a difference there. I don't want to get into Breeze's arm strength and all that. Who knows what it really is? But I will say this, Mr. Rodgers, that guy loves the deep shots. He's already taken 16 downtown shots, and Breeze doesn't do that. So I think in this league, if you can't score on chunk plays, if you can't get big plays in your drives, we talked about the Raiders. They're always on these 10 and 12 play. And if they're working, great, but so often they don't. Rodgers can give you chunk plays, and that takes a drive, and maybe it's a 5-play drive for a touchdown. I like the Packers in this game.
Well, you mentioned the Raiders. The last time they went to Foxborough with John Gruden as head coach, a dynasty was born. On the other side, I believe they're 8-21 in their last 29 in the Eastern time zone, and one of those 8 was the win against Carolina week 1. Pat, to me, and I know fans don't want to hear this, and Gruden and the players would never want to hear this, but Pat, I'd be impressed if they go and just play well. win or lose. I would be impressed if they travel slightly shorter week, travel to the East, and play a really good game. Outcome be damned.
I'm with you on that. I think I would say that if we rank the 2-0 teams, they might be near the bottom of the 2-0 teams. I think a lot of people still don't see them as a playoff team or any of that. So yeah, I'm with you. Now there's another guy I talked to, Josh Jacobs, yesterday. They're working that guy. 59 touches in 2 games, and he said he's not tired and didn't feel tired after the game. And I was asking him a lot of stuff like that. So he's going to come in. He's always legit. He's going to give you something. The quarterback's got a nice short rhythm passing going. I think the tight end's going to play Waller. But I can tell you this, and I think you guys say it more than I do. Belichick is not going to give you that tight end. Yeah, I don't care. Darren Waller will not be getting the ball 12 times. That is not happening. Belichick will take that away, and they'll minimize it. He'll get 4 or 5, but I don't see him getting it. So I'm with you. If they go in there and play respectable football, no one has an answer for Cam yet. I'm loving this storyline, and I don't know that their defense is strong enough to have an answer for Cam either.
We talked about Arizona. David and I both have them going to the playoffs. I did something I've never done. I said it to the folks on the air on, I think, Thursday morning when I started texting you when you were going on your show about the NFC West. And I think there's some there. Pat on his show said, hey, I don't know if it's going to happen, but with 7 teams, could 4 from the NFC West get in? And I'm literally in line at the Walgreens where we meet for the stone crab drop-off, Pat. I'm picking up a prescription, and I start going through schedules. And I pull over to the side of the road where I get my prescription to text you because Arizona's going to be favored in 6 games the rest of the way. And I look at the Cardinals, and while Kirk hasn't had a lot of touches and Hopkins is catching everything, Drake's getting all kinds of touches, not just carrying the ball, but getting passes. I mean, this offense doesn't just have 3 receivers. They got a running back who's really good, and we all know Kyler Murray's escape ability. This team is really, to me, still at 2-0. No one's talking about them. They would probably be in that Vegas and Chicago 2-0 teams that we don't trust. Not on this show, Pat.
No, and not in this game, not against the Lions. So all the things about Murray that you said, first off, he has 10 scrambles where you knew it was a pass play and he took off and ran. And he got 99 yards doing it. And then the other thing about this guy in that out route game is that little speed out that he's been throwing, they can't stop it. He's now 11 for 11. And you always look, what are the bread and butter plays of some of these quarterbacks? Well, his is running, but the little speed out game that he's playing is kicking everyone. It's 11 for 11. And it's like it's his 3rd down catch. It's I want to make it 2nd and 2, so I'm going to throw a speed out on 1st down. His arm strength is terrific. And why did I start looking at it? Because last week, Bill Cowher wanted to do something on Kyler Murray. So I was digging out as much as I could. And he was comparing it to Breeze and Brady, who are throwing that ball from the wide, to the wide side of the field, and how much better Murray's ball looks. So then I said, now I'm tracking all this stuff. And the next thing I know, it's 11 for 11. So yeah, I like that team right now, but I'll ask David, you and I have already had the agreement that it's possible. I didn't say probable, David, but could 4 teams from the NFC West make the playoffs?
Well, the only way it happens is you can easily make the case only one team comes out of the East. And quite frankly, right now, I mean, are you a believer in the worst team in the NFC West or the Bears as the second best team in the North? So I think it comes down to really the Bucks or the Saints, whichever one's the second best team in the South. All right. Can the last place team in the West beat the second place team in the South? And as we pointed out on this show, I think it's the Rams and the
like
Bucks.
November 3rd, David. It's like November 3rd. Rams.
So we don't know who the 4th place team in the West is going to be, but the head-to-head matchup is the Rams against the Bucks. And so, Pat, that if maybe, and a lot of people pick the Rams for 4th in that division, if they are a 9-7 4th place team, do they beat the Bucks head-to-head and because of it win a tiebreaker? That's where we possibly see it happening.
Yeah, so I think we can leave it in the possibility range and not be ridiculed for having an opinion. It could happen. I got no pushback from anybody yesterday. And a lot of people go, well, I haven't even thought of that. I go, I didn't until I started asking myself the first question, who is the fourth place team in the NFC West? Now, it might be San Francisco with all their injuries, but no matter who you say at this point, you could, as Mark did, look at the schedule and go, you know what, darn it, they could get the fourth spot, which would be unbelievable if that ever happened.
Pat, we've had a couple of weeks where groups of injuries have affected. Last week, David's Thursday night game, the Cincinnati defensive front was banged up. It made it pretty easy for Chubb to have a big game. We've talked about the Washington secondary. Is there an injury group? Is there something going on this week with injuries where you say a certain team is much more vulnerable because of this matchup?
Well, I think Dallas, their secondary, there's a number of guys out and there's a number of guys wounded. And you're now against the Seattle willing to throw in the beginning of the game with the best deep ball thrower in the league and speed all over the field. And when you start, just talking to Pete Carroll this week about Moore, okay, let's talk about Moore. We all know about Tyler Lockett and Metcalf. He couldn't stop talking about this guy's emergence over, and he's had him for 3 years. And he said he said he's a really good athlete who's finally figured it out, and the quarterback has a lot of faith in him. So that touchdown he threw to him on the pylon was unbelievable, really. It was a great throw, but to put it in there to the kid, and the kid brings it down for a touchdown. So I think Dallas is and there are multiple problems there, linebackers and offensive line as well. So they're wounded as could be. Here it is, San Francisco, their list is brutal. Now, I did track and try to do this every Thursday morning anyway, how many people on IR and all the other episodes here. When you start looking at IR, exempt, PUP, NFI, opt-outs, and suspensions, you got a couple teams jump right off the page at you. Obviously, one of them is San Francisco. They have 14 players included in all those problem areas. People with a lot on IR, Dallas, 9, Denver, 8, the Jets, 9, San Francisco, 8, Seattle, 8. So those things are going to come back to haunt everyone. Here's my question to you, David. Do you think the league and the union should sit down and say, hey, all those guys that opted out, they didn't know we were going to test every day. They were told we were going to test for 2 weeks and then once a week. And for some of them, they were going to opt out for a lot of reasons. But do you think they should let them come back at midseason and say, hey, a lot of things changed. Now we do this every day. We're proving it safer. Do you think the league, we have 170 guys on IR, and that's going to be 200 very shortly. Do you think we should be able to offer those 68 guys who opted out a chance to come back at midseason?
Pat, we're very pressed for time, so I'll simply say yes, because we've already seen in the college ranks, Pat, about 8 players who said I was done, watch everything play out over the last 2 months and decide in the last 2 weeks, you know what? I think I'm going to give it a go. So if they can do it on Saturdays, why can't they do it on Sundays?
That's the spirit, David. And I heard your name getting called out last night. Always proud to hear how well those guys think of you. Well, like guys in the league.
Well, I gave him the Raiders-Patriots line, and I think the reason he attached my name to it was that it was going to anger Raider Nation, and he wants me to take all the heat, not him. So I told him, I said, thanks for that, Troy. Really appreciate it.
Next time you give out your Twitter handles, they come right at you, Molten.
Right.
The scroll underneath it when he was talking had your phone number on it.
Not like everybody else doesn't have it. They used to give it away at front desks, Pat.
Yeah. Pat, be well. Have a great weekend.
See you, Pat.
Pat Kirwan, afternoons on NFL Radio, moving the chains with his co-host Jim Miller, and he joins us courtesy of Pinchers, from Tampa to Key West and many points in between, with 8 locations in Southwest Florida. Pinchers, because you can't fake fresh.